Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to E-Tool Nation Podcast. We are back for another season here of talking things, all things associated with living the warrior class. I'm SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell, and I got my co-host in virtually here, Sergeant First Class retired Ryan Hendrickson, also the author of the book Tip of the Spear. Ryan, how you doing, brother? I hope you're fired up for tonight's show.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. Doing great, and proud to have the Veterans Lending Group, be part of the team.
Absolutely, and as everybody knows, we could not do this podcast without our sponsor, Veterans Lending Group. So tonight we're kicking off. I almost feel outnumbered here because these Green Berets are all around me here tonight. But we're going to kick it off with a very great American, a good friend of mine, and a guy that I have come to kind of, look at as a confidant now as we talk about the profession and everything. He is Sergeant Major Chuck Ritter, who is the Assistant Commandant at the Non-Commissioned Officer Academy at the Special Warfare Center. Chuck, welcome, brother. How are you?
Thank you. Awesome. Thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for coming here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I am, Ryan is at home in Florida, right, Ryan?
Yes.
And I'm in Chuck's basement.
Yes.
But
it's the Falcon Snail Pub.
It's the Falcon Snail Pub. And I've been listening to Irish music and looking at all of this Scotch whiskey and everything and everything. And this is just like a great place to be at today. So, Chuck, we brought you on the show today because we really want to talk some current issues that are going on with our military. But first of all, we want to find out who you are. Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be where you're at now.
All right. So I've been in the military now for 24 years as of February. I've spent 20 of those in Special Forces. And I've been in 3rd Special Forces Group the whole time, minus I was our senior leader course, first sergeant for Special Forces. And then now I'm running the academy. I asked to come for the last part of my career before I retire to work at the NCO Academy because I believe it's a pretty powerful place for influence in the force. Because I just had my 30th surgery last year, lower back fusion, 30 surgeries for combat related injuries. I might have my 31st on my hip probably, and maybe on the shoulder if it's indeed broken from skiing this last week. But yeah, so I'll probably retire next year. It's been, a great career. I've got 12 combat deployments. I know we're going to talk about mental health a little bit later, but, I've got a number of injuries as well. I've got 3 Purple Hearts.
Yeah.
And, one of those is pretty significant with TBI. It took 4 years to rebuild everything from here down, which resulted not just significant TBI with 7 skull fractures, but also some other things I had to deal with mentally with friends lost and whatnot.
Yeah, so we want to crank up and talk about your role at the NCO Academy. And, you had me out for a great event today. And if our audience doesn't know who James Kerr is, the author of the book Legacy about the New Zealand All Blacks, I would recommend you Google it and look at that book, one of the best leadership books. But I had the awesome opportunity, to join James today in a leader development session with your instructors from the NCO Academy. I thought it was a great day today. Yeah. What were your thoughts on that?
No, it was great. So the book Legacy is one of those books that I wish I would have picked up. I mean, I probably read it maybe a year ago, maybe less than that, but I wish I would have picked that book up years ago because it's about the All Blacks rugby team, the most winning team in sports history, but it's about not just them, but what set them apart and what really allowed them to do that. It was the organizational culture they set within a small team, and that's applicable across the board to anybody in the military. The tenets of that book are motivation to the point to where I've read the hard book or the hard copy. I've got the audiobook, and I'll go back and listen to parts of the audiobook when I'm working out just to pump me up, especially when it's got the haka. But James is magnificent. He's magnificent. I don't know what I just said, whatever magnificent is. But anyway, magnificent at being able to articulate what he's trying to say when it comes to organizational leadership, because it's a topic that, I don't know, it's probably not a sexy topic usually, but he makes it to where you almost can't put the book down and you can't stop listening to what he's having to say when he's dialed in, and I'm sure in person.
Yeah, it was awesome day, and interacting with your instructors it was a great day for me today. So let's talk a little bit about the NCO Academy. But, I got to ask Ryan first. Ryan, every Green Beret goes through the NCO Academy. So before I ask Chuck how good of a job he's doing over there, can you share with us a little bit your experiences at the Non-Commissioned Officer Academy here at Fort Bragg?
Yeah, so I actually went through SLC when it was a mobile training team, and I guess basically what I mean by that was there was an online portion that you did, and then this mobile training team would go out to the different locations, and you would have a 3 weeks of hands-on, and it was leadership development briefings, and just being that senior leader, because in special forces and in the regiment, we rely a lot, if not, well, I'm not going to say solely, because officers have a part too, but we heavily rely on our senior enlisted leaders, and because of and to do things that your most conventional Army senior leaders don't really have to do so much of. They do have to do it once they get to a certain point, like the position that you were in. But as your E6, E7, and then the Master Leaders course and whatnot like that, you are being asked to be able to competently brief in front of whatever foreign country, general, colonel, indigenous force, whatnot like that. Oh, by the way, hey, 1-star, 2-star, so-and-so over at CAF wants a briefing on this mission that's coming up in, hey, hip pocket, you need to be able to spill this out to him. And you have to do that in a professional manner, because as a Green Beret, you are a professional. And I mean, that's my opinion of it. And so that's the reason why these courses are so important, especially for SOF. Well, military in general. You can see videos of what's going on with the breakdown of Russian forces in Ukraine, and because they don't have these kind of senior leader courses and whatnot. But it is very important in our military. And because I came from the SOF world, extremely important, because if you can't articulate what you need to do in a professional manner, that's going to end up convincing that person of what the end state is, then you might as well not say a thing.
Yeah. Now, I heard something about a missing CD from this online course. What was that all about, man?
Yeah, so back in the day, I probably went through the last hard SLC course. Doesn't everybody go through the last hard course?
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, no, mine wasn't bad at all. But I didn't know about this elusive CD that may or may not help guys get through the online portion, which, correct me if I'm wrong, Sergeant Major, but you got a year to do the online portion, or you had a year, I think, or 6 months.
We've revamped it. The NCO PME courses have come a long ways, but in SOF, there used to be some CDs, and there used to be some stuff for a couple of other courses that would help you, because some of them are almost impossible to pass unless you have some help.
So I didn't know about this elusive help, because I was TDY when I did the online portion. And so I actually really did it. And I showed up to SLC bottom of the class, and I had like a 90, or I had an 89% average, which in my, coming from where I, grew up and the struggles I had in high school, 89 is pretty good. And no, it wasn't good at all.
Yeah, if you want to be in the Commandant's list, you're talking about percentiles of like 98, 99%.
Yeah.
It's pretty close.
Yeah. Needless to say, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I got it up to a 94 and still finished last in the class. So it was good.
Yeah, you can come back, man. We can try it again.
I'm good, Sergeant Major. Thank you.
So, hey, talk to us, since we're on the NCO Academy here, and I think we all agree, and Ryan kind of laid it out, especially from a special operations perspective. I think our greatest competitive advantage over any threat, especially in large-scale combat, and Ryan just kind of talked about the lack of that mid-level management with the Russians. But our greatest competitive advantage is our trusted, empowered non-commissioned officers.
Yep.
So as we look at large-scale combat in the future of what warfare looks like, what direction are you all trying to take to get after building and sustaining these ready, trusted, and empowered NCOs and SOF?
So I think that we take it for granted in the U.S. Army a lot of times. If you haven't been around and seen how other armies conduct business, the fact that we do empower NCO corps is not that's not common, right? A lot of people use the old British model or a bunch of other models where the officers making the decisions, and that's pretty much it. Whereas,
Yeah.
we throw around the word mission command a lot, but it's actually pretty important to understand not only where that came from the old Prussian concept, but how we actually utilize that to enable decentralized decision making on the ground. That's what really sets us apart as NCOs, and we've revamped NCO professional education recently to where we're truly trying to achieve critical thinking, to where there's no PowerPoint, there's no online portion. You come in and it's cognitive overload. It's a lot of adult experiential learning methodology, to where we're teaching you concepts in their parts: national strategy, unconventional warfare, training management, and planning. But then you can't pass these tests anymore unless you can explain the why. There's no rote memorization. If you don't truly understand the content, you can't pass each module. And then each module builds on itself. So by the time you get to unit training management, you have to understand how United States Code and your authorities go into that, because you're going to do battle focus analysis. So you can build a 1-year training plan knowing you're going to deploy to an unconventional warfare environment here, which in your planning exercise, now you're going to put all it together there, because now you've trained up for it. So if you try to say, hey, we're going to do some MAROPS and boat into this fictitious country, but you didn't train up with any kind of boat stuff, why would the commander underwrite that risk, right? Yeah. And then understanding what authorities you have and what that falls under, and then being able to execute that with planning. So really teaching everybody in their parts, and then bringing it all together to where you can truly explain it and explain the why behind it. So you can, that critical thinking is more than just understanding something. You got data, and then information means it's data that's relevant to you, right? And then you turn that information into some kind of understanding or knowledge, and you synthesize that into some kind of an education. And then at a certain level, you have critical thinking, which is mentally exhausting, because you got to question it and go through it and break it apart to its lowest common denominator and be able to put it back together and understand it. And the litmus test for that is if you can take a complex subject and explain it simply, then you've probably got critical thinking. If you can't, and just regurgitating some kind of verbiage, or you can't truly explain it in a simple way, then you probably haven't achieved critical thinking, right? So that's what we're trying to achieve with the non-commissioned officer course. Because for us, what we believe, like the senior leader course, as Ryan was saying, SLC, like being an E7 is not an entitlement, right? The Army's, they're not entitled to, like, hey man, we just want to pay you some more money. That education piece isn't the sexiest thing, right? It's not kicking in doors, it's not blowing stuff up, it's not the fun thing that you're doing. But you're not entitled to E7. If you want to be an E7, now we expect you to take a step back. Instead of just being the chess piece, now you're that chess player, right? Now you're understanding the rules of the game, so you can dominate the game, right? And then as you move up to E8, now I'm going to be the chess master. You can't dominate any game in life unless you first understand the rules. Once you understand the rules, you can bend them a little bit and manipulate them, but you just don't show up to a game of 4 people playing Monopoly and just make up your own shit and expect to win the game. You're just going to piss people off, right? No. Understand the rules of the game first, and then you can dominate the game. So that's what we're trying to teach people. Understand, here's the rules. We operate inside the box sometimes, and then soft, we say we operate outside the box, which we do. But unless you can define the box, which is all your rules, you're not operating outside the box. You're just pulling things out of your ass. So you got to understand the box first. You can be adaptive, and maybe the rules work. And then because you understand the rules, you can be innovative now and springboard off those and be innovative. But if you don't understand the rules first, you're just pulling it out of your ass.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan, you were talking about this earlier, but what did you take from the senior leader course, and how did you apply that back in your duties? Because, we hear this all the time about some guys and gals go to a school and they say, hey, I didn't learn anything. And that is applicable to my job. And I think, well, you didn't pay attention most of the time, And so what did you take from your time at the NCO Academy here at SWIC and apply into your daily duties back in ODA?
So what Sergeant Major was saying is that it's absolutely correct. You cannot step outside of the box unless you've mastered what's in the box. And that's and that's another thing is we always tell everybody, you're not too cool for the basics. You can't be a Green Beret unless you can master infantry. But what I took away from SLC, I don't think it is possible to go to senior leaders course as a Green Beret and not take something away from it, because that is like what you learn in the senior leader course is what we do on an ODA. It just, it perfects it, or it kind of if your shot group was a little wide like mine was, it kind of zeroes in your shot group a little bit on just operations orders and briefing and how to. There's a big difference between actually understanding how to give a brief and actually being able to give a brief, because there's a lot of, it's confidence, it's body positioning, it's language, filler words, and all that other stuff. So what I learned at the senior leader course basically took what I was already doing on an ODA, and it made it make sense to me in a professional manner, because you can't be on an ODA as a senior leader and not utilize the stuff that you're going to learn in SLC and MLC. It's impossible. And so, yeah, it just helped me. It just fine-tuned my skills as a professional soldier, which is what a Green Beret is. So,
yeah. Okay. So, both you gentlemen, multiple deployments, and both of you have been, are combat wounded. And so, Chuck, I want to ask you, 3 Purple Hearts, you've been wounded in combat, and we were talking about mental health and everything. So talk to us about, any kind of the pitfalls that you had after being wounded, mentally and emotionally, and how you dealt with that, and how you got yourself, if there was a rut, how you got out of it, and how you got to where you're at now.
All right. Well, I'm sure Ryan can agree here. He probably, I think that I found every time I got wounded was because I had a deficiency in my online training before I deployed. And that's
very true. Very true.
And that's really like,
that damn 350-1 shit comes up again.
I would have been 100%, Ryan too, he probably didn't do his AP level 1, and that's probably what happened.
Well, I think you said that's why the Russians are failing so bad.
Yeah, that's,
right?
you can tell,
their
like,
online
you
training
videos of just the lack of discipline. If they would have done their online training, that they probably would have been a lot better off. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I think it just all starts with with that mindset. I was pretty much a failure when I came in the Army. I wasn't doing so hot. I had $70,000 drug charge on me and a host of other stuff. Scored 94 points out of 300 on my first APFT. But then I decided
94 out of 300.
94 to 300. The whole you can walk, but it's not recommended. Yeah, I took that thing to heart. So
wow.
Yeah, I think I ran like a 24-minute 2-mile. I'm not even sure how that's possible.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, but people invested in me, right? But I had a shift in my mindset. I think that kind of carried me through all my recoveries too, to where at some point in time I said, you know what, I got to stop being an idiot, for one. But then, I truly believe that if you believe in your mind, if you truly visualize that you're an unstoppable force in nature and life, then you will be, and nothing's going to stop you from your goals, right? I recently read Ryan's book. It's the same thing. He was all jacked up in the hospital. I did appreciate the part in your book where you're all on drugs and trying to fight people. That was pretty interesting. But yeah, he decided that, it wasn't, nobody's going to feel sorry for you. You're going to take this and you're going to overcome it and you're going to dominate it. At the end of the day, if you truly understand that failure and defeat are the same thing, you can fail at things.
Yeah.
Pick your ass back up. And if you know that you're always going to end up on top, then you will. And that's what really brought me through, was always just visualizing out that no matter what, there's going to be pitfalls, but I'm going to be successful. I'm not going to put some kind of weird, stupid timeline, which I did during one deployment, which talked about, which might have bit me in the ass or might not have. But I'm going to recover from this, then you will. Or you can feel sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
But most people that commit to dominating and knowing that it's not going to be easy, they'll usually overcome it. And not that the pain's going to go away, right? I'm still to this day in quite a bit of pain. None of these bones in this part of my hand are mine, right? I got some weird screw that's loose right here, so I can see my pulse in my left eye when I'm running. But you just deal with it, you overcome it, you don't let it stop you.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job on our run this morning, man.
Out
in the woods here in North
Carolina. A little back fusion and a jacked up hip with a bunch of torn.
Yeah, that was good. So Ryan, your thoughts? Having anybody that's read Tip of the Spear has seen or has read about your recovery and everything. But for those that haven't, can you kind of talk through your recovery and how you got after that mental and emotional aspect to get on your way back to going back on another deployment.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason why I got injured was I was out of uniform standards. So 670-1, you know, I had the cool guy top on and stuff like that. And yeah, that's.
You didn't have your reflective belt on. Is that what it was?
No,
or?
no. So I it was going to happen. You can't avoid it. So no, with me, you know, Sergeant Major was saying, and with me, it was the same way. And I think a lot of people come to this realization. So, you know, number one, the biggest realization that I had to come to was you're not special. A lot of people have been wounded, and a lot of people are going to continue to get wounded. You're not special. But the problem was, until I actually was able to take a step back and to look at myself and to realize, number one, I was feeling sorry for myself. Number two, I was becoming a victim of my injury. And number three, I was entitled because I was injured. As in, do you know what I've been through? Do you know what I've done? Do you know what? No, they don't, because they weren't there. But I was starting to become this victim of my injury. And I was going down a very, very dangerous path. And my dad had told me something one time. He said, hey, look, you know, what happened to you was bad. He said, but time's going to keep moving on. And as Sergeant Major said, time's going to move on and you're going to heal. It's going to happen. But there's something that is going to also happen. You're going to get to an age that you're going to sit there and you're going to look back, and you're either going to be proud of how you handled the situation, and you're going to be able to hold your head up high because you know that you did the right thing or made the right decisions, or you didn't become a victim of it or whatnot, or you're going to sit back and you're going to be ashamed of yourself. And he said, that's a horrible thing. You don't want to sit back and be ashamed of yourself as an old man, because he said, that's a death sentence right there. He said, so understand, as bad as it seems right now, you will move on from this. But if you do not get a hold of yourself, if you do not quit feeling sorry for yourself and blaming everyone around you, then you are going to be a miserable old man if you make it that far. Because a lot of people become part of the 22 a day because they can't see through that. And it's it's very true. So in my recovery, I can talk to people about both aspects, because I went down the road of poor me and the victimization mindset until I finally got a hold of myself. It's like, look, dude, you are not special, and no offense, nobody cares. All right. Thank you for your service. Great. But I have my own life to live. I got to put food on my table, and I got a family to take care of. So I really appreciate everything you did, God and country. But I can't relate to you. So quit trying to force me to relate to you, because all you're doing is driving everyone away. And when I finally quit feeling sorry for myself is when I was actually able to recover mentally. And I battle with it. I'm a human being, but I think, as Sergeant Major will tell you, it's an ongoing battle, but you're constantly, you know, correcting your azimuth and just trying to get back on path when you do have those pitfalls, or you get off your azimuth a little bit.
Yeah. Both you gentlemen, you know, are a model for how to get after this. You know, you mentioned to me earlier today, you know, about, you know, you went 4 years where, you know, you didn't have any front teeth and everything, you know, and, you know, just the vanity part of that, you know, not having any front teeth and everything. How was that, you know, during that 4 year period there?
Well, I mean, I could have got my front teeth sooner, but I actually snuck into a 2010 deployment. I falsified my medical records, and the battalion CSM actually called me on it. Near the end of the trip, he's like, I'm not going to send you home, Chuck. But he's like, I know you didn't finish your surgeries. Do you know how I know? And I was like, how? He's like, well, first of all, you don't have your front teeth. So that's indicator one. Indicator two, you know, I've called your surgeon and your psych, and you're not cleared for duty. So you're going to go home, and you can't go back to combat until I see a note from your psych and your surgeon. So that took another 2 years. So I probably could have had new front teeth in 2011. But there was a lot of complications with rebuilding my upper jaw up here that happened. So I didn't really care. I just looked I thought I looked like a badass hockey player, you know. But right after that we came back from that trip, and then, you know, my team deployed again, and then I was supposed to be on that trip. I thought I was going to go on that trip, but, you know, I couldn't. And then we had team members die, and people that I was close with, their dog tags were actually under the bar up there. And that hit me pretty hard, because I felt like if I wasn't there for that, somehow in my head I'd convinced myself that I was there, that wouldn't happen. I mean, I don't think that's true now, but that caused me to go into some mental issues that I had to deal with for about 6 to 8 months, to where I was on some Benzie drugs and some other things to kind of help me through. But we'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about, I know you want to talk about mental health a little bit, but
yeah.
Yeah, so just dragging yourself, that struggle physically is also the struggle mentally. And then it's like Ryan said, it's a constant battle of, because then when your physical portion starts getting a little more painful, it hits your mental portion, you start going down that downward slope. You got to bring yourself out of that. And it's amazing how the body will follow the mind, right? So when you're on that positive glide path, or you're thinking that in that positive realm, your body will actually follow that. But then when you're here, your body will follow that too. It's really when sometimes you just don't recover as fast as you want to, right? Like we all think we're just going to do it and we're going to be like, next week I'm going to be back on my feet. When that didn't happen, you get pissed. So I think that's, Ryan can probably attest to that well. I mean, he wrote about it in his book about, it's like, well, shit, like I thought it'd be better by now, or I'm on this mission and I didn't think this is going to be a problem, but it is. Like,
yeah.
We'll go ahead and jump right in real quick to the mental health aspect. I think we all agree that there's still a stigma associated with seeking help. It's almost as if, if, you're wounded and you're seeking help, okay, people can see that, or people will underwrite that. But then if you're healthy and you're seeking help, there's a stigma associated with that, meaning that, for me, when I went to seek help, about PTSD, I thought I was going to ruin my career. I was the SEAC at the time. And when I went and did it and was diagnosed, I had to go tell my bosses, that I was in treatment for PTSD. And that was the longest walk I've ever done in 38 years in the military. But I was doing it to myself. So it was interesting today that we had one of your instructors talk about getting after the stigma. So how do you think we need to get after this?
I mean, I think we're doing a much better job of it. I can't speak for all the units, but at least in special operations, I think we're doing a much better job. I mean, you went over there and saw that, our mental, our cognitive enhancement staff is pretty large. And, we've got sports psych. So it's kind of getting left to bang and then, really getting after it, while you're in, because even say you're on combat deployments over and over again, you have nothing physically that happens to you. But when you put yourself in that hyper aware state for that long, that messes with your body, especially if you're out of fire bases away from everything. And you have to be in that state of, like, man, I'm ready to kill anybody at any point in time. That just affects your body. Right.
And it doesn't go away.
And it doesn't go away.
The hypersensitivity stays with you.
You can train yourself. Like I told you, like I get real nerdy with heart rate variability training. And and there's all kinds of different ways you can really engage your parasympathetic nervous system. And you can see it physiologically, that response, because there's nothing magical that happens up here, right? Your body is responding to something somehow and get stuck in these states. And then there's ways to get it out. And it's harder for some, we got stellar ganglion blocks for people that can't control it. Because once your body's in that zone, then sometimes you just can't get out. You're just stuck there. And you can see it. If you're doing, HRV stuff, you can see it, where that person's at and why they're always angry or why they're lashing out or emotional. So there's a lot more science behind it. There's a lot more empirical data that shows that it's not just some emotional thing where you can't handle it. Your body's actually responding and it's stuck. And then, how do you get out of that? That's kind of some of the stuff that we're affecting there. But I think we're doing a better job of realizing that it's not this disorder, or, it's not something to be frowned upon, that it's going to affect your security clearance, which I'm a big advocate. I mean, I think everybody should go see a psychotherapist at least once a year, even if you think you're healthy. Because you're probably not, right?
Yeah.
And then just being open, like, hey, I need to go see somebody because I'm going through these things. I can't, whether it's emotional or you're anxious or whatever it is, go and see professionals for that, because, the mind is primary. This is what drives everything. So to try to disconnect, this is part of the machine. This is part of the machine. Like, it's all part of the machine. To try to disconnect those things is kind of, it's kind of ridiculous, which I think we do sometimes. Like, it's all about like working out and this and staying physically healthy. Like, it's everything. I used to actually laugh at spiritual health. I was like, oh, that's kind of dumb. I don't need the spiritual pillar. But then, recently I've really found that, getting back into relooking like Maslow, even Maslow's hierarchy, right? I'm like, well, at this point in my career, I'm kind of there. Like, I don't really need any more money or this stuff. I've got job security. So I'm just doing stuff that makes me feel better internally, like mentorship. I don't need to do outside things. So I think that the spirituality pillar is, if I go back in time, that's something I would have taken, or at least promoted for my guys. I think that's important. Spirituality pillar, mental and physical. I don't know, Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree. I also have kind of I have a pretty big opinion when it comes to PTS and what I've been seeing happening, in the force lately. And I really believe that we have come so far since when my dad was getting off a plane in San Francisco, coming back from, Vietnam. Extremely, extremely far, to the point to where I honestly believe that we almost, I guess the word that I'm looking for is we almost make people entitled to PTS. And it's one of those things that I feel that a lot of people are trying to wear. Not a lot of people. Well, no, I'll just say it. Screw it. A lot of people are trying to wear that badge because it's automatically linked to you've been through the shit and you've seen some horrible stuff. And then, and like Sergeant Major was saying, then the people that actually really do need it, the problem is it's backfiring on the force, because the people that really do need it, they're seeing this and they're like, well, I'm not going to go in. If this guy is going for it, no, I don't want anything to do with any of this. And so I do believe that, yes, we do. There's a mental health crisis going on 100% in the force. And it's going to get even worse when the full impact of what actually happened in Afghanistan comes full circle. It's going to get even worse. But a big part of PTS is taking ownership of it. And I've talked to guys before that they want the easy button. And it's like, well, someone has to help me. No, man, you have to help you. There's nobody in charge of your mental health besides you. If you don't want to be better, you will not be better. And you're going to bring everybody down around you. But also understanding that, hey, the situation you went through, like, let's get a full idea of what actually happened. And because a lot of PTS, I don't know if I'm going to get any friends out of this, but I've seen a lot of people make up their own demise when it comes to PTS. And I've seen stories that have been created when it comes to certain situations. And it's like, I don't think it quite happened like that, dude, because I was there, or something like that. So because we're a society of we love drama, we love heroes, and we love the underdogs. And we have made PTS all of that. It's dramatic. You're a hero if you have it, and you're an underdog, and everybody. And so now I do believe that it is one of those crutches that people will lean on and become, because who's going to question it? The first time a doctor says, yeah, right, get out of my office, and the kid goes out in the parking lot and blows his brains out. I mean, so who's going to question it? Yeah. But I do believe that, yes, we have a mental health crisis, but a lot of people that really need the help are kind of shying away from it because it's become so popular that everyone can do it. Your barracks lawyer, you want 50%? I can tell you how to do it right now. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you mentioned Afghanistan, and when we take our commercial break here, we're going to come back and we're going to talk Afghanistan, and we're going to talk a little bit about Ukraine and large scale combat. So stand by for this message from Veterans Lending Group.
At Veterans Lending Group, we're not just VA home loan specialists. We are educators, community leaders, military service members, or family of those who serve. We are committed to serving, supporting, and educating our military families. 60% of our staff are prior service or spouses, and 85% of the loans we close are VA loans. We are your special ops of VA lending. We will not restrict your VA home loan benefit like many other lenders do. We believe that you have earned this benefit through your service, and we are here to protect your right to use it the way the VA wrote the guidelines. Our team can lend in all 50 states. We are here to assist you with your next home purchase or refinance, whether you are PCSing, transitioning, or retiring. Our team of specialists are here to support your family. Visit our website today to connect with a VA specialist. www.veteranslendinggroup.com.
And welcome back to the E-Tool Nation podcast. I am SEAC retired John Wayne Troxell with my co-host, Sergeant First Class retired Ryan Hendrickson, the author of Tip of the Spear, and our special guest, Sergeant Major Chuck Ritter, the Assistant Commandant of the Special Warfare Center NCO Academy. All right, we want to talk the operational environment now a little bit. And Ryan brought up that we haven't seen the fallout of Afghanistan yet in terms of what that means to those veterans that have served there and hardened everything. What's your take on Afghanistan? Was it the right move for us to leave? And do you think that we did it in the way that we should have done it? Or do you think we could have done it better? What's your thoughts?
I mean, that's something we get really deep in the woods, right? Like
Yeah.
I was in Afghanistan from 2004 on, and I just wrote a large paper on Afghanistan, just the history of it. For us, we're like, oh, we're there for 20 years, it's so long. But if you're trying to change a culture to something, like, that's just chump change, right? So it's one of those things where you either got to be committed or you're not, and determine like what we're really trying to achieve. Like, did we really have a strategy there to begin with? I would say that trying to arm Afghans, with F-16s and some other high-speed stuff, as we were trying to do at one point in time, is pretty folly, right? We're trying to apply Western solutions over and over again. We keep doing the same thing to cultures that just aren't about that, right? The 20th century came through Afghanistan. When you leave Kandahar and Kabul, or maybe not, I'd say just Kandahar and Kabul, and you go out in the countryside, they took what they wanted from the 20th century. They took a vehicle, maybe a couple of vehicles for the village, a cell phone, a generator, and a water pump, and maybe a television here and there, but that's all they wanted. And that's all they care about. We came into these people who've been living like this for thousands of years. Like, man, we got to build all these wells. So we dug all these wells. We just lowered the water table is all we really decided to do, and to apply Western solutions to something that, these cultures like that, when you get these tribal cultures in those areas, like, they don't care about thinking as fast as we do, right? It's just not in their nature, and that's not bad or good. But if you look at least that country over the, its entire history, nobody's ever conquered it, right? And there's a reason, because everybody tries to go in there. If you look at even the Soviet invasion of 1979, right? Like, that started when the Soviets came in, installed another puppet government because they didn't agree with what was going on, and then they put out all these they said, hey, we're going to go
the country when they came
well,
in.
they said, we're going to start educating women.
Yeah.
We're going to do all these things, and everybody outside of the major cities was like, hell no, that's not what we're about. 19 mullahs said, nope, it's going to be a conflict. Country rose up, Soviets came in, but that's what, every time somebody's tried to come in and apply some kind of more liberal solutions to the country that isn't necessarily wanted outside the cities, it's always resulted in the same thing. So I'd say we kind of made the mistakes that we made in Vietnam there over and over again, and then we made the same mistakes that everybody else has made in history. And for us to say that we can't learn from that, or we did the best we can, I think that's pretty folly. I mean, I like the country of Afghanistan personally. I was there. I've been wounded there 3 times. Like, I died on the operating table there overall, but I found that overall it's a pretty cool country. It's kind of crazy. There's a lot of combat. Maybe I'm like a warmonger. I don't know, but that's an interesting question. Was it time to leave? Like I don't know what were we really trying to achieve? I don't know. I was there for 20 years, so I don't know. What were we trying to achieve in Afghanistan, Ryan? What was the end state?
So I believe that we went into Afghanistan without an end state, and that's where we hit roadblock number 1. But I also believe that our overall objective was achieved by about 2005-ish, even though we didn't have jackpot, which was Bin Laden. Still, we had taken Al Qaeda out of the country, but we started that campaign without an end state. And then for 21 years, we've been fighting 1 and 2 year wars for 21 years. Because every time a new commander would come in, the narrative would change. Okay, now we're going to do this. All right, we got it up to 2009. Now we're going to surge. We're going to do a surge like we did in Iraq because it was successful there. Oh, wow, it didn't work. So now we're going to have to tailor back. We're closing down all the outposts, 2014, 2015. And we're going to recluse back to these major fire bases. That'll help everything out. Oh, Taliban just took the entire countryside, and we're still there and still there. So we've been fighting 1 and 2 year wars, in my opinion, for 21 years that we were there without an end state. We didn't have a withdrawal timeline or even how to. And so I love Afghanistan, and I've had some good times and some bad times there. but we definitely went into that country without an end state, and we kept changing the narrative every time we get a new commander in. And so that's, I mean, to me, I mean, we achieved our objective. We just didn't know it in order to be able to leave the country. And everybody always had a new, hey, if we could do it in Japan, Germany, South Korea, then we could do it in Afghanistan. And as Sergeant Major said, you can't undo that many years of tradition and their mindset. And let's be realistic, who are we to undo it?
Yeah, I mean, and there in Afghanistan, you got, people like, well, Islam, but you also got Pashtun Wali, right? And Pashtun Wali itself is like, when you combine those two, it's a super complicated tribal thing that, I mean, I would say in 20 years, like, it wasn't even, to me, I didn't see any religious war stuff going on. It was mostly like tribal stuff, power, them using our own forces against their competitors, like, obviously drugs with opium and everything. But it's just wild. It's far more complicated than most Americans that haven't been over there could really understand. I mean, the Afghans, I'd say 90% of Afghans I talked to couldn't even explain it to me. So it's almost more so complicated that they can't even explain it to you. Right? It's just this weird dynamic over there. So yeah, it's like, what are we really trying to achieve? If we're trying to achieve this democratic government, maybe that society can't take a democratic government.
Yeah.
Right? There's some cultures that just probably aren't at that point yet, and they don't want it, so they're gonna recoil against it as the masses.
Yeah. I mean, this is something big for debate, but again, through a Western lens, I mean, we took a mortality rate that was in the mid 40s to where it's in the 60s now, because of the ability to get health care. And the literacy rate increased big time. And I think both you guys know, we were, every new soldier, every new Jundi that came in got a first grade education, which, I mean, compared to where they were coming from. So, but again, how does that add, to Ryan's point, how does that add up to a strategy that will have an end state that will allow us to withdraw under our terms?
You got the patience for that too. Like, first of all, what is the end state, and how long are we willing? What are we really willing to invest to meet that?
Well, I just think when you see, don't get me wrong, our troops the troops will always do a phenomenal job in whatever we ask them to do, and they will do it under the harshest conditions. But I think sometimes we have to look at the conditions we put troops under to be able to execute a mission. And if there is not an end state to it, or if there's not a why we're doing it, then I think that's where we get into problems.
Yeah. And there it was like you had pockets of people doing incredible things all over the country. None of it was nested. Right.
Yeah. And frankly, I don't think that in some cases the Afghan government was on board.
Nope.
Especially under Karzai, so. All right, Ryan, what question you got for Chuck Ritter here about Afghanistan?
Well, I mean, real quick, one of the things that in my opinion, we failed to do in Afghanistan was truly understand them and their culture. So we're trying to make an Afghan parliament with every tribal, affiliation in this parliament, when that may work great here, but that's not how the world works. But then you try and force it to work. And so they play well because they want that funding, or they're just like, okay, I guess we're going to try and do this. But there's just too many thousands of years of tradition, or whether it's hatred or whatever it is, segregation that you can't undo. And that's what I also believe that was another issue we ran into, is we just didn't fully understand the Afghan culture and history. But yeah, so sorry, I just wanted to throw that in real quick.
No, I think you're onto something, because the rare times that I saw a Pashtun general that had a sergeant major that was a Tajik, or the relationship was not that good. And it wasn't because that sergeant major wasn't good at what they were trying to do. It was just those tribal differences that they couldn't overcome. So go ahead, Ryan.
So as far as questions for Sergeant Major about Afghanistan, I guess one question that I always ask everybody, because it is, I'm curious about it, but when was the right time to leave? Because, you know, I mean, I know we can toss around those kind of demographics, but just in your opinion, I guess, when was the right time to leave? Or should we still be there?
That's a good question, right? I mean, you can go back, and when people say, oh, we lost the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, it's like, no, like originally, like we won both wars. We met our initial goals, right? In Iraq, like, hey, ensure Saddam and the country isn't a theater threat, right? We did that. And then Afghanistan, ensure that, you know, we overthrow the ability of the government there to sponsor terrorism at an international level, right? We didn't get Osama bin Laden right away, but we did. But then at that point, like, what are we really doing there? And sometimes, like, okay, are we maintaining 2 strategic air bases because we have Iran over here, which is pretty smart, you know, in my opinion. Like, I would want to keep 2 strategic bases within striking reach, resupply reach of this country. Or are we really trying to install some kind of democratic government, right? So I guess it boils down to, if we're playing the game properly and we're playing the geopolitical game like we should, like, I probably would at least kept 1 strategic base there, and at least dedicated a minimal amount of troops there. But that's just me, and I could be wrong. I don't know what goes on up in the Beltway sometimes. But if you're looking at, hey, you know, we're going to try to install this democratic government there, and we want it to change the culture. I mean, you're talking about a 40 to 50 year commitment in the country, and we as Americans, we probably just don't have that patience, right? That's why dictator style regimes like China and, you know, Russia, they have the long game patience that we just lack, because, you know, we got 4 years at a time, and then on the ground there we got 1 year at a time, because, you know what, you can't get a good OER if you're not changing some stuff around, right? You got to create at least 4 new acronyms and make something new. So yeah, like, I don't know what the right answer. It depends on what's our goal. Is our goal to maintain a strategic capability, which, you know, that'd be a long-term presence, or is it really that we're committed to changing this culture like we did in South America, which took 40 years? You know, if you look at something like Colombia, like, we changed their culture to where they do empower their NCO Corps. They do all these things that are a little less corrupt, right? But it took a very long time to do it. So if you're going to do that in someplace like Afghanistan, you probably have to commit longer than that because of the culture, right? So, like, I don't know. Like, again, it falls back to the right time to leave would fall on what was our in-state goal and strategy, which after spending 20 years there, I don't even know what it is. So,
well, you know, every country that I went in as the SEAC, especially places like Libya and Somalia, the first thing the commander on the ground or the sergeant major would ask me is, what's our foreign policy that's guiding us here? How does this thing end, kind of stuff, you know? And I just had to give them the loser salute, you know. Hey, you know, I don't know where we're going with this. So let's, you know, we're at Afghanistan now, and you know, as I do my leadership seminars and everything, and I spoke to it today to some of your instructors, and I said, the minute we came out of Afghanistan, as a matter of fact, I did a special edition leader talk show on it, and I talked about it would be dangerous for us to think that we are going into an era of persistent peace because we're no longer in Afghanistan. Numbers are significantly down in Syria and Iraq and everything. And lo and behold, here we are 6 months later, and we have a war in Europe for the first time since World War II, with Russia invading Ukraine and everything. You, as a guy that is a senior leader, still in the Army, and as a Green Beret and everything, what do you think this means to us in terms of us being prepared for large-scale combat now? I feel like, and this is just Troxell's opinion, since we've left Afghanistan, there's been a little bit of indifference to, you know, the fighting and winning. It's we've been getting after other things that need attention, but certainly aren't our prime reason why we exist. So what do you think this means now? We've got 14,000 on the east, on the Ukrainian border, and we've got a total of over 100,000 in the UCOM area now. What does this mean about large-scale combat operations? And as a force, what do we need to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of my special forces brethren would disagree with what I'm about to say here, but, you know, there was a lot of talk over the years where we're doing counterinsurgency type or small-scale operations, where we went to the BCTs, the brigade combat teams. We really tailored our force to this insurgency style of operation, And there was talks about, hey, we don't need as many tanks, we don't need this because it's just irrelevant. But as we see now in this war, it is relevant. Or you can make the argument like, well, look how much Russia's losing to that. Yeah, but if you really compare their doctrine to our evolution of air-land battle to what we have with combined arms maneuver right now, the synergy we can have with all our systems across artillery, armor, aviation is incredible, right? I don't think anybody in the world can match what we can do. I think we take that for granted sometimes too, which we all thought Russia was going to be this machine that would just swoop in there. We see that they're not quite, they can't do the things that we can do, where it's almost flawless in how we can align and array our forces. And it's just, if you look back in Desert Storm, those engagements were phenomenal, right? So imagine what we could do with modern technology. I think that, it's always a thing to be prepared for that big conflict like we see there, because what happens if they do move into a NATO country? It's not going to be small scale counterinsurgency units doing a whole lot. It's going to have to be, that synergy of massive amounts of firepower and special operations and everything else you can bring to bear to stop that beast. So yeah, like LSCO is very important to understand and how to operate. There was a training exercise we did in Alaska not too long ago to where there was a brigade combat team fighting Op 4, and we emplaced ourselves as a special forces company with 4 special forces teams, maybe it was 4, maybe it was 3, behind enemy lines. And, security is one of those warfighting functions, right? Especially the rear, they forgot about that. So they paid. We messed up all of their rear area systems until they actually had to pull a company back and secure their rear area, which if you look at the Ukraine fight, that's exactly what Ukraine did to the Russians. But when you don't practice those kind of things, it atrophies. And I think that understanding large-scale combat operations across the force and in SF is important, and knowing what your role is in that, because it's where we got our start too. In World War II, you had large-scale combat, and then you had, pockets of small operations elements doing all your rear area work.
Yeah.
But to say that that's not a valid threat, I think that we just saw that it's a very valid threat, and we got to be prepared not just to face Russia, but also China. And that's going to take everything. It's not just some kind of special operations fight. That's the entire military.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What's your opinion?
Oh, I'm with you. I agree. Ryan, go ahead. What do you got for Chuck?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. I definitely agree. Near peer conflict, you need to have a near peer response. But I think, well, there's no but. That's near peer foe, near peer response. Special operations is going to be so key. And the reason for that is because, so you go back to World War II and you look at the French resistance and you look at the OSS and whatnot like that, and the disruption that was able to happen. I believe that the key to this, and it's the same thing that's happened in Afghanistan for every major empire that's gone in there. It's not that they lost; they just got tired. I'm done. Well, the same thing with unconventional warfare and an insurgency in Ukraine that will trickle over. I mean, there are some very upset oligarchs in Russia right now that are pissed because their Miami yacht is now Ryan Hendrickson's. I wish. Anyways, but insurgency and the unconventional warfare aspect, because it has been found truthful that no major superpower has defeated an insurgency yet. I think it started off with the French in Algiers, and it just kind of went from there. But they and please don't fact check me. But anyways,
there was the Russians in Chechnya, right? But their take was, we'll just level everything, and once we kill everybody,
yeah,
it's over, right?
But did they really win? Because Chechnyans are still around. And so I honestly believe that, yes, a near peer foe needs to have a near peer response. Special operations will have to be, I'm going to say it, sorry guys, whatever, tip the spear, because it's, all right, hold on. Because it is it's going to be an extremely bloody conflict when you have two superpowers going at it. And you can tip those scales with what I think America is superior at out of the entire world, and that is unconventional warfare. Training unconventional warfare. And there's a certain group of guys in the U.S. Army that are pretty good at it. I don't know what I think they're Green Berets, but no, I think insurgency and just my opinion alone, insurgency and going back to that French resistance OSS mindset is going to be so key, because you're just going to clobber each other for millions of dead until finally someone's just like, this is dumb, man. Nuclear option. But
yeah,
if you can actually look at the human terrain and the human demographics in Russia that's going on right now, and there's agents over there right now that are like, all right, can we get this stoked up? Can we start something here? In oligarchs, it's something's going to happen. I don't know what, but it's going to revolve around that, again, in my opinion, that insurgent mindset. And that's what I think is going to be key. Just nobody will know it's key in a near peer conflict.
Yeah. So the Russians have been showing their ass here. Here they thought they were going to fight 200,000 Ukrainians, and they've been fighting 40 million of them.
And if you look, like, to Ryan's point, like, really a lot of the stuff that slowed them down was those Ukrainian special forces, behind those enemy lines. They let them envelop them. They just attacked all their critical resupplies that were coming in. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Chuck, we're just about out of time here, brother. Thanks for coming on and opening our season here for E-Tool Nation podcast. Ryan, you got any parting words here for our guest?
No, it's definitely good to talk with you, Sergeant Major. And I think we were the parting groups in 2010, third group and seventh group, if I'm correct.
I was at Camp Moorhead. We stood up to Afghan Special Forces that trip.
Yeah. Okay. So we were all we relieved that third group team up there in the along the Choo River Valley. So
nice.
Awesome. Well, so what's your message for any Green Beret NCO out there tonight? We've talked Afghanistan, we've talked Ukraine, we've talked mental health, we've talked the profession and everything. What's your parting message to the NCOs of Special Operations?
I just think, like, we need to change our mindset right now. I see a lot of negativity. We're just pissed the wars are over, or they're just complaining and bitching. It's like, hey, stop with the negative attitude, man. It's a privilege to have this job. The stuff that you get to do, like, people pay to do this stuff. How about shut the fuck up and just change it? Like, be positive. I've never been on a bad deployment. I've come back on a medevac bird 3 times. I lost plenty of friends. I've never been on a bad deployment or a bad trip or a bad rotation. JRTC to NTC gets up here. About shut up, stop the bitching, and dominate it. Or if you don't want to do that job, get out. Do something. Go work at McDonald's or something. But if you do want to do the job, man, just do it with a positive attitude and crush it. And let's stop with all the complaining and negative stuff all the time about how you're entitled to whatever. Nah, man, you know what you're entitled to do? You're entitled to show up every day to work and earn that Special Forces tab. That's it. It doesn't endow you with anything else. It doesn't make you a badass. It's a piece of cloth. All it says is, hey, you have the right to show up every day and earn the right to wear it. And that's it. That's what I got.
Awesome. Well, you heard it out there, all of our Special Operations NCOs. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining E-Tool Nation podcast. Join us again next month for our next show. Ryan and I will be back next month. And Chuck, once again, thanks for being on here. And thank you for letting me stay at this cool place and being in this beautiful pub you got down here.
Man, no worries.
So what do you say we adjourn this meeting to go, get on some Scotch whiskey here?
I approve.
All right.
Nice message.
Ryan, I wish we could have you come with us, brother, but we'll catch you again soon.
We'll get one for you.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you next month on E-Tool Nation podcast. Boom.